Hi everyone, welcome back. And myself Tuhin. I have around a decade of experience in the IT industry, and we have our esteemed guest, Dr. Jigyansa Ipsita, who has over a decade of experience in stress, anxiety, mental health care disorders, and he has psychiatric specialist and super specialization in child psychiatry. So, and she has much more uh, in her uh, what do you say professional bio, which I'll put down in the LinkedIn profile below in the description. So please do check it out. So without further ado, let's start with today's uh, topic. I think it is an interesting one for at least engineers. I think for all the fields, not only engineers. Today, I think it is a generic topic. So today we'll be talking about perfectionism and excellence. So, Dr. Jigyasa, like Um, how does perfectionism differ from striving for excellence? Especially, I can say for my field in engineering, even a nanometer matters. So how can you like differentiate that?
Hello guys, welcome back. The topic is actually fascinating for me, and I would say it's very close to everyone's heart also because we always keep struggling with perfectionism and excellence. We see both of it as almost synonymous, but actually, I would talk this as a precision paradox. Right? So, as you rightly said, even nanometer is important. So, in engineering, that amount of precision is actually important to save lives, be it building a bridge or a home, or maybe even designing medical instruments, or maybe running codes. So, I think it's important. But precision is about being 100% correct all the time, right? But perfectionism isn't about precision. It's, I would say, it's fear, which is dressed up as something called standards, right? So excellence asks, what level of quality does this situation require? And perfectionism says, how can I make it so perfect that no one can criticize it? So I think this is the basic difference. And if I simplify it further, it's like excellence is using a micrometer when you need it, or a nanometer per se when you need one, and a ruler or a normal scale when that's enough. But perfectionism is using a micrometer to even measure your lunchbox. You know? So I think that's the difference. If to begin an introduction, it gives a clue.
Okay, I'll follow up since you gave a generic answer as well. I'll follow up with another question. Like, why does I'll take my personal example. I cannot talk about others. You have done the research. I haven't. So, as per my personal experience, like why do I feel good enough is not enough, like, or I struggle with accepting good enough, and I want to make it perfect. Like whatever I do, I want to do it perfectly.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question because it's not only you. I think all of us deep within, we do strive for things that are better. Good enough is something which people consider it's not actually that good enough because obviously you have identified certain points where you feel there is a lacuna, and that is why you say it's good enough. And our brains are also not literally designed to be happy with good enough because it's evolved to keep you alive, not to help you maybe just manage whatever you need to. And maybe evolutionary also, we know that it's the survival of the fittest, so you have to be the best, you have to be, better than that, and only when you'll survive. That is how maybe our evolutions or our genes are wired. And when I talk about what happens inside the brain, there is a part of the brain called the frontal lobe. and then there is a part of the frontal lobe called the prefrontal cortex. I think all of us are aware about the frontal lobe. It's a part of the brain in the anterior part, or surrounding in the anterior part. It's called the frontal lobe. It helps you take all the decisions in life, and a very specific part called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Right? And it's like your brain's project manager. So what happens is it tries to manage things, कोई थोड़ा something you're actually coming near the deadline, it will try to push you harder, and then the other part of the brain says, no, no, it's not perfect yet. So it tries to manage, and that is something which regulates. But what happens is when you're striving for that perfectionism and you are stuck in that cycle, uh, your security system, that is the amygdala, that gets activated, and you're afraid, what if I release it, or what if I say it is submitted, and then someone identifies an error, I cannot do with it. No, 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 I don't think there is a proof that there was an error and there is something which could have been improved, and someone else points that to me. No, 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 that is not acceptable to me, right? And your security system gets triggered. No, 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 that is a sign of danger, that is not something that I want to do. And that is why you keep optimizing yourself, because you also know that you can identify, maybe if you're given a little bit more time, or maybe you tend to work a little longer, you can also work on those perfections, and you keep searching for more, 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 more. So it's like there's a code for engineering, if there is threat detected, you know, and then you say keep optimizing. And then when we talk about threat, we define threat as any imperfection. So here we are not talking about how much benefit we will get eventually by actually solving that 0.01%, which is not perfect. You know? And the brain perceives even that 0.01%, which is lacking perfection, as a potential catastrophe. That is why maybe good enough is not good enough for most of us. And we want that perfection inside.
Okay. But do you think it is related to, because I often think maybe I have anxiety or most likely OCD, or do you have some other um psychological, psychiatric term or something that you can define what I am suffering from, or if I am suffering from?
Yeah. I'll start by maybe the first statement. Everything that we deal with in this world has to do something with our psychology and our psychological mind, right? That does not mean if anything in little bit of excess or anything little bit of less than that means that you have a psychiatric condition. That is my first statement. At the same time, no matter whatever behavior we do, and today's context is perfectionism, right?
Mm.
So it can be driven by anxiety, right? Like, for example, if something isn't perfect, something terrible will happen. If that is the kind of mindset which makes you continue strive for perfectionism, it's possibly anxiety driven, right? The another thing is the one you said, OCD, right? I would not say it is OCD driven. I would say rather it is OCD flavored. For example, I must check this code 5 times before I send it somewhere. Otherwise it feels wrong. Otherwise it may not be perfect. Otherwise I might miss something. But if I do it for 5 times, or for example 7 times, my lucky number is 7. I'll just redo it 7th time. So if that is the kind of compulsive thinking that goes behind your mind, then possibly it has a flavor of OCD. But perfectionism can exist without meeting the clinical criteria for either anxiety or depression. I would rather see it as a spectrum. You know, some perfectionists may have anxiety about outcomes. What will happen if I release it and someone criticizes, right? And others may have compulsions about the process. Like I have to do it like this. This is how it should be done. Any other way is a problem. But here's the key: it becomes a problem only when it starts interfering with your functioning. And for example, because of that, you're not able to sleep. Because of that, you're not able to eat. Because of that, you're not able to go out, not able to enjoy, not able to relax. If that is the kind of impairment it has, in addition to a lot of other symptoms, then it becomes a problem. And then it might be something that you might need help with. Otherwise, I think all of us do strive for perfectionism once in a while. That's fine.
Okay, got it. So, just to give an example to what you have said. So, personally, if I start a task and I am not able to do it perfectly or finish it perfectly, I feel bad that why did I start the task at all? Like someone else could have done it better, maybe. So how do I deal with it?
I think more than dealing with it, if we understand why it is happening, I think we'll be able to find a way to deal with it. It's like an unfinished project is something called the Schrodinger's code. Have you heard of it? Maybe you can Google it. Yeah. So the answer to that is Schrodinger's code is something. It is both brilliant and terrible until you compile it, right? And how does that work? It's like once you say that it is complete, you have actually created an evidence of your failure. And all of these are terms that our mind tells us. For example, a thing is not perfect, it means a failure. So psychologically, this is called the anticipated regret. So what happens is your brain actually will prefer to live in a fantasy of a potential perfection, rather than the reality of actual good enough and not possibly the perfect product. And that is why, as you rightly said, a lot of developers actually have folders that are full of projects almost finished, you know, because they're possibly working on still something and they want to make it better. Obviously, it's good because I think all of us need to keep optimizing things, and that is where we all try. But not completing any of your projects with that fear that I will have an evidence of something that is good enough and not the best. I think that is the perfect, um, imperfect completion paradox. Things are incomplete, and that is why I'm not imperfect. That is why I don't want to complete it, and I want to keep working on it. I don't know till when. So
Okay.
if you, I'll just add one more thing also, and this is actually something called the optimization addiction. You actually can't stop optimizing because your brain actually gets dopamine hit from improving things. It's literally addictive. And that's the cruel part. Dopamine comes from the process of optimizing and not actually achieving perfection. So when you actually improve it even slightly, you get, oh, I was reading it 5 times. I, read it 5 times, and then only I was able to modify it a little. See, now it is so much better. And then you get the dopamine hit. So your brain has actually hacked your reward system here also. If you have become addicted to perfectionism, you're actually not chasing perfection. You're actually chasing the next dopamine hit of I made it better, I made it better, that kind of thing.
Okay. So do you think perfectionism can be thought like a buggy algorithm or a feedback loop? And if so, then how do you like to debug it for me? Like how
But
do you suggest to debug it for
yeah,
me?
what I would say, actually going through it again is not bad. It's not actually equal to analysis paralysis. It's actually having control. So if you're able to redo it, and I'm actually going with the deadlines, with when I should be having a done, this is what my target is of done, then it's okay. But analysis paralysis happens when your brain actually uses planning as a way to avoid completion. you know so I'll debug it, the language engineers use, debugging solution. So let's try and decode it further. So identify the bug type. So what is your trigger? Is it actually a fear of judgment that others will know there is a problem? Is that the problem? Or it is a fear that I don't know what will happen after I say it is complete. Someone else will have control. I won't have the control anymore. So, what's exactly the trigger for your perfectionism cycle? The second is you actually make a printout and put it on the table that you're working on your work desk. I am perfecting this because I'm afraid of what? Fill that sentence up and keep it on your table. Okay? And second is have a plan for yourself and set a deadline. I will finish this task in this much time, and that is a deadline that you have set for yourself, which is achievable. Don't set a very short or very long deadline. Keep something which most of the people would complete it. At least you know your potential, right? And then define your success metrics. Maybe earlier you would say, "Is this perfect? If it is perfect, then only I'll say it is complete." But maybe the new way or the new thing that you should say, does that solve the problem? This was the problem what I was assigned with for the job. And whatever, for example, I said the example of a micrometer and a ruler, you know. So what amount of precision would actually solve the problem, and what is the return on investment if I spend 1 hour doing it? So that kind of a metric would actually help you understand how much time you should be investing in actually optimizing it further. And then um, you can also categorize your task into two types. Does this solve the problem? Means does it meet the specifications that is advised for, right? Then maybe I'll just say it is done. And if I want to improve it, I can improve it later. You know, the way we do our podcast, you know, we're just saying it. If it is good enough, we'll just release it, and maybe we'll work on our imperfections and start getting better. So that way, you will also have that excellence drive, which you keep on improvising yourself as you start, and you have more and more episodes and more sessions. And it also catches the delivery needs. You need to deliver in time, right? So that also is getting done. And then there is something called an exposure therapy for engineers. So what you can do is when you say it is nine, for example, now you must be saying when it is 95% complete or I'm satisfied, I release it. But now maybe set it lower. If it is 85% complete, I think it's good enough. The world would not end, right? The sky will not fall down. So once start doing it for once and let's see what happens. So good enough is not a catastrophe. You need to experience that before you understand it completely. And the last thing, once you start, you're not able to do it. I think the question again you have to ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? What will happen? First question. What's the actual probability of that happening? Right? And second, even if I improvise it further and then I say it is done or then I ship it or whatever. So what are the costs associated with shipping it now and then? You know, sometimes if you don't stick to a deadline, you might be actually having a lot of financial losses and, for example, a lot of fine and all of that can happen. So lastly, I would like to say, here's what 10 years of my psychiatry experience taught me about perfection. Perfectionism isn't about having high standards. It's about using impossibly high standards as an armor against criticism, failure, or vulnerability. You know, you see the irony. Perfectionism, you think protects you, but it's actually holding you back. So I think good enough is actually good enough because it can potentially save a life if it is released today. And maybe by the time you optimize it and send it later, there might be thousands of products in the market. That's it.
Okay, got it. Yes, I think perfectionism, so as per you, is an addiction and could be good, it could be bad. Just to summarize, it could be good, it could be bad. If it is going good, well enough. If it is going bad, then the way you described it, why it is happening, noting it down. Sorry, did I miss it?
Yeah, yeah. I'll just add one more thing. It is similar to addiction, not necessarily an addiction. Yeah, but if the steps that I said does not work out, please free to seek a consultation with a professional. I think that might help you work on your perfectionism cycle if that's causing a trouble.
Okay, got it. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your time. I know it is difficult for you to manage time, but thanks a lot again once again.
Thank you so much. It was nice joining you today. Bye bye. Have a good time.
You too.